it was just one of those moments where I was just like, oh no. Oh no. The very first thing to say is that this video is going to contain spoilers. So if you have not watched the series yet, do not watch this video. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I have filmed this introduction 3 times because it is Bank Holiday Sunday here in the UK. Shardlake literally came out on Wednesday and it's Sunday, so I'm trying to film this as quick as I can to get it up as like a reaction. But with it being Bank Holiday Sunday and the sun is out a little bit, we have a lot of motorbikes around. We live in the countryside now and there's a lot of like kind of country roads near where we live. And so motorcyclists come out. And so basically you might have to deal with a little bit of bike noise in the background. I apologise, but you know, it is what it is. I also don't have my mic clipped in that I normally would do. The reason that I don't have that is because again, I want to get this video out really quickly for you so that you can see what you think about my reaction to Shardlake. And yeah, editing audio with a microphone and the camera and trying to sync everything together, it takes quite a long time. And so I hope you don't mind that this is going to be a little bit more ad hoc in terms of the audio quality, but I figured that you would forgive that in order to have a quicker reaction video. So yes, get yourself a coffee, get yourself a tea, get yourself a beer, get yourself a glass of wine, whatever it is that's your tipple, because this is probably going to be about 30 minutes long. And the reason for that is A, I'm a talker. So I talk a lot, and B, I've got quite a lot of thoughts about it, and I think you're going to be surprised at my overall reaction to Shardlake. So yes, let's get into it. I watched Shardlake when it came out on the 1st, which I think was Wednesday. I watched it in full, all 4 episodes, straight away, back to back. I started watching it at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it was too light, so I had to leave it until not midnight, I had to leave it until about 8 o'clock at night, until it had gone dark enough for me to be able to like fully take in everything, and then I just binged it. So I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning when I finished the last episode, but I wanted to kind of watch them all together so that I got a really good like kind of equal opinion on all 4, because I think sometimes when you binge something you get a better overall impression of a series than you would if, like you say, watch 1 episode at a time. You kind of forget what happens, you forget your thoughts and opinions on the first one by the time you get to the last one. And I know this is only 4 episodes, so it's not as pivotal as like something that's like 8 or 10 episodes long, but still I thought that I would just do it all at once and get it all over with, which sounds a bit like I just wanted it done and I wasn't enjoying it. We'll get on to that. But yeah, I thought I would watch it all at once. So I watched it on Wednesday. I took notes. Extensive notes as I was watching it. Now, the interesting thing is I wrote more notes on episode 1, slightly fewer notes on episode 2, slightly fewer notes again on episode 3, and then I didn't take any notes on episode 4. So I think basically what happened is I got into it, or I got used to it. So the things that like I was picking up on in episode 1, either they were still already issues in episode 4, so I didn't need to write them down again, or I'd kind of got used to the world, got used to the surroundings, and so things weren't popping out at me as much. I also got into the storyline, and you kind of get into more of like the plot and the story versus observing it all with fresh eyes. So I think overall, let's go for some overall opinions on it. Overall, I both enjoyed it, which I know is probably going to be a surprise to a lot of you, and I really didn't like it in other ways. I think the thing with this show is that there are some things that it did really well and really beautifully and real kind of like, oh wow, yes, brilliant moment. And then there are other things that I looked at and went, why? Why would you do that? Like, that's not how that would happen, or this, that and the other. So it was a real highs and lows. Like, there were some really great high moments when I was like, oh yeah, this is brilliant. And then there were some real lows where I thought, oh, if you just tried a little bit harder, that would have been a lot better. And I am going to come on to specifics, but that's kind of like my overall opinion. I also think that if you've never read a Shardlake book, if you've never read any of CJ Sansom's novels, I actually think general viewers will really enjoy it. I feel like all of the things that CJ Sansom did so well in terms of like the plot, the storyline, the fact that we're looking at, you know, a murder mystery set in Tudor times, those things do translate over really well into a TV series. And so I think if you're not a hardcore Shardlake fan and you are watching this for completely the first time thinking, oh, it's a new historical period drama, I'll watch it, I think you will have really loved it. And I hope that it does really well in this first season, because I really want to see more. And that's unexpected as well. That's really surprising. I expected, to be honest, I was very cynical going into this, and I expected that I was going to hate it. I thought I was going to come out and be like, oh God, that's absolute crap. I can't believe they've actually butchered Shardlake, blah, blah, blah. I'm not quite there. There are things that I wish had been done better. There are some things that, I mean, in my mind, I still want like a HBO level, you know, the same kind of quality of production and care and attention to detail as something like Chernobyl did. But in the absence of that, I think Disney Plus actually did an okay job with this. And for the first kind of TV adaptation of Shardlake, I mean, it'd have been better. I'm not going to lie, it would have been better if they'd have just knocked out an absolute banger to start with. And I'd have been like, wow, incredible, you're never going to get any better than that. Overall, though, my thoughts are that, yeah, there were some bits that were great and there were some bits that were not so great. And I think some people will love it. Inevitably, there are going to be the people out there who absolutely hated it. That's your opinion, you're absolutely fine. This is just my opinion on Shardlake. And I think that's the beauty of things like this. We all get to have an opinion. But please, please respect other people's opinions if you put a comment in the video here. The other thing to mention, of course, very sadly, is that CJ Sansom has passed away this week, which is really sad because obviously we've lost such an incredible writer. The fans of Shardlake novels have lost future novels from CJ Sansom. It's incredibly sad for his family, and of course he has been battling cancer for a really long time, so it's kind of that bittersweet thing of, well, at least he's not in pain and he's not suffering anymore, but at the same time we're all devastated to have lost you know, a wonderful writer. He will have seen the adaptation because he was involved in the production, in the adaptations, he was involved in all of that, so he will have seen the show, which is amazing, but he won't have seen the fans' reactions, and so that's really sad that he's going to have missed that. But apparently, when he passed, he was working on a very final Shardlake novel. Obviously, he knew that sadly he wasn't going to be able to survive his cancer, and I think he was writing a novel for us, the fans, basically to wrap up Matthew Shardlake's life. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if it's going to be a Lucinda Riley situation where her son carried on the last of the Seven Sisters series and did the Atlas one, which finishes up that series. It could be something like that. Or perhaps it'll be a partially finished novel with notes that will be published. Hopefully we get to see it, just because purely from an interest point of view, as a fan of CJ Sansom's work, I would love to see what he was working on. I would love to see what his plans were for Matthew Shardlake's life and kind of the culmination of all of these novels that we've been kind of reading. So we will see. If at the end of it they decide not to publish any of his work, then absolutely I respect that. And I will continue to love and read all of his novels that he's done before then. So let's get on to some specifics. So the first thing to say that if you, the very first thing to say is that this video is going to contain spoilers. So if you have not watched the series yet, do not watch this video. And I'm going to put this here in the video, and I'm also going to put it as the very first bit of the video as well, because I do not want people saying that I've ruined this TV show for you. My reaction is coming out very early, so therefore, if you have not watched it all yet, then please don't watch this video. Stop right now, go and watch it, and come back to my reaction once you've watched the video, okay? Right, so I'm sure that by now, if you have watched the series, you will know this, but for anyone who is coming to this completely fresh, want to know more about Shardlake, you haven't watched any of my previous videos on the adaptation, then this series is called Shardlake, but is actually based on the very first book in a series called Dissolution. This is my copy of Dissolution. It is dissolving as I speak, but it is, I mean, I bought this years ago. The cover's like coming off, but it's my treasured possession. And Dissolution is, like I said, the first one in a series about a lawyer called Matthew Shardlake who lives in the mid-1500s. So this one, it starts not long after the beheading of Anne Boleyn. So that's basically gives you kind of a setting. And it is the story of Matthew Shardlake, who is a lawyer, who is sent to Scansea, which is a fictional place down on the south coast, to St Donatus monastery to basically investigate a murder. So the dissolution of the monasteries is in its infancy, and Thomas Cromwell has sent a commissioner, is what they were called, sent a commissioner down to St Donatus to tell them, basically, you need to start dissolving your monastery, you need to start handing over your wealth, you hand over power to Henry VIII, this, that and the other. And he's murdered. And so Matthew Shardlake sent down to investigate the murder, find out who it is that has killed this guy, Robin Singleton, and also to get the monastery to basically surrender to Henry VIII and to the commission. So that's the storyline in a nutshell. And Matthew Shardlake is very kind of, he's a details man. He's an attention to detail. He likes to find the truth, no matter how long that takes and no matter how things can kind of move around and no matter appearances. I suppose in many ways he's a little bit like Sherlock Holmes' character. He's very, I think at one point he describes himself as a melancholic. Now this is because in the 1500s, medicine and general health subscribed to the idea that there were 4 humours. And I can't remember all of them. I could go into detail here, but I want to talk about the show more than I want to talk about the 4 humours. But basically, if you research the medieval 4 humours, it was basically thought that everything in the world divided into 4 different humours, and that people were made up of these 4 different humours. And one of them was bile, which made you a melancholic. And it was the idea that people who were a little bit more low in spirits, people who were a lot more serious, people who were prone to mood swings or had depression, because spoiler alert, there was depression throughout history, that you had an excess of bile in your body, and therefore that's what made you a melancholic. And that's where the idea of being leeched comes from. You see this a lot in medieval shows, is where they put leeches on you to kind of like draw the bile out of your blood. That's what they believed. Didn't work. But anyway, so yeah, he's described as a melancholic. He's a very serious man. And I think, personally, I think they did really well at getting that across. I did see a comment recently saying that they turned him into like, this person was really annoyed because the character of Shardlake had been turned into like a snarky person. But if you read the books, Matthew does have a propensity to be snarky. He can be quite quick to anger at times, and he snaps at Barack quite a lot sometimes. And so I do think that got over quite well. One of the things that I was really concerned was with the trailer, that I saw a shot where he had a sword, and I was like, please don't tell me that they're going to turn him into some like knight with a sword and he's going to be heroic, because the character of Shardlake, he has a disability. I'll come on to talk about that as well. He has a disability and he is a serious man. He's a scholar, he's a lawyer, he's not a soldier. And so I was really concerned that they were going to turn him into this kind of hero character. They didn't. He was very much in character the Matthew Shardlake that I think of in the books. And I would have liked a bit more of a bit more seriousness, a bit more studiousness, a little bit more of the geek to kind of come out of Matthew Shardlake. But I anticipate that, I appreciate, that it is a 4-part drama. They can't go into like a massive amount of detail at this stage. And they are hoping that this is going to be the first of a set of seasons. And so we can learn more about that side of him as we go through subsequent seasons. I'm happy with that. The one thing that I think was not good, so this is where we go from having something that was really good, Matthew's seriousness, his kind of, his commitment to the cause, that kind of thing I thought was brilliant. Very much like the books. I liked that. One thing that I absolutely hated, and I don't understand why it was done, was that they made Matthew talk to himself. They made him speak to himself like not even like an internal monologue. We all have an internal monologue. We talk to ourselves in our mind like, oh God, why did you do that, Charlotte? I think that several times. Even when I'm recording videos, I'll be like, oh God, that was a bit cringy. I never refer to myself in the third person. I never go, oh Charlotte, why did you do this? And that's what he does. He's like, he talks to himself in the third person. And granted, it's only maybe 3 scenes in the entire show where he does this. And I think that they've done it like that because they want to show more of that internal story that we get in the books. So the books are written in first person, And I love first-person narratives because you get really into the character, you get really into the thought processes, the anger, the emotions, the motivation of the character. And it's brilliant. But on the other hand, then when you translate that to television, it's really hard to do because you can't have an internal monologue unless you're going to do some Lizzie McGuire-esque style character in the head, which I always loved. But you can't really do that, and it almost would have been better for them to have made Matthew write a diary or make him write some letters. It's a bit cliche, but it would have at least given him the opportunity to kind of write his thoughts down, to show us what he was thinking without having to do some weird kind of like talking to himself thing. It just didn't work. I just didn't see the point of it. And it was like he was talking about, I think, the point where like he's kind of becoming a little bit interested romantically in Alice, the female character. And that is in the book. But to be honest, the only way you knew that was by him doing this weird kind of slightly internal monologue thing to himself in his room. For me, it would have made more sense to just cut that out of the storyline and not have that. And I get why they wanted to keep it in. It does show part of Matthew's character, his earnestness. I guess without that, he would just be the crabby lawyer. And so they're wanting to slightly soften him. But it just felt a bit lazy. It felt like they could have worked that in a lot more. They could have just had him being really kind to Alice and being like, almost like a father figure, rather than this, oh, Matthew, she's not going to look at you twice. Why would she want you when you can't wear a jewelled codpiece? And I was just like, what? What? It was just one of those moments where I was just like, oh no, please no. Thankfully, like I said, there were only 2 or 3 moments like that. And I hope that's something that they drop for future seasons because it just wasn't necessary. It just wasn't needed. The other thing that I both liked and didn't like are the sets. I mean, the sets, the shooting locations, etc. So I picked up on this in the trailer. I was like, that's not a monastery, when I had a look at the place that they were using as St. Donatus. Now, I know that they filmed in Romania. A lot of period dramas get filmed in Europe because Europe has better medieval architecture than England. And also, it's cheaper to film in Europe, in mainland Europe. So I knew that they'd filmed in Romania, and I vaguely kind of recognised this castle, but I was like, I'm not sure where that is. It's very much not a monastery though. But to be honest, when I saw the interior of this location, I completely understood why they picked it. And I personally would rather see a building that sort of represents what the monastery may have looked like, rather than a CGI one or using external sets, because I hate sets. And I know it's impossible, you have to film on sets these days. So I'm willing, me personally, I am willing to accept a castle in Romania as the setting for St. Donatus. Hello everyone, Charlotte coming at you here from the future. I'm just editing this video and I'm having to cut out a whole section because I spent time talking about Bran Castle in Transylvania and saying that that was the setting for Shardlake. Now, unfortunately, I was mistaken. They've actually filmed at a number of different castles across Romania. So the external shots, that kind of beautiful shot with the bridge where they kind of ride across at the beginning, you see people running across the bridge, that's Corvinesti Castle in Romania. And then they use another castle called Hunedoara Castle in Romania for some of like the interior courtyards. I think basically they couldn't find just one castle that had enough internal courtyard space so that they could play out a lot of the scenes of the show, but also had a really kind of stunning exterior. So it's actually a number of different castles that the show is filmed at. So this is probably going to jump across a little bit, is the footage, because I do spend quite a lot of time talking about sets and the castle. But yeah, they definitely filmed in a number of different castles across Romania, and there's a few different ones that they filmed in. Those elevated walkways, they would have been quite common around this time in English architecture. We don't really have any or many surviving examples of what they called not covered balconies, but that's kind of what they're like. And they were very common in medieval architecture. So it's lovely that they found an example that had that, and it allowed for that kind of elevated acting and lots of different viewpoints in that courtyard. Really liked it. So any of the sets where they were outside I actually thought was pretty good. Some of the bits were a little bit hammy. Some bits I was like, oh, you can kind of tell that's a bit of a set. For example, there was a point where there is a pond in the gardens and they, again, spoiler alerts, although I've said it already, they find the sword and they find a dead body, the body of Orphan Stonegarden, in the pond. And they're walking towards this pond and I was like, that could not look more like a set pond if it tried. Like, it just didn't even look vaguely realistic. It just made me cringe looking at it, and I was like, guys, you've gone to all of this effort to find a location that is beautiful. Why has that been so badly done? So it's things like that. The other thing as well was the village of Scarnsey, which is separate from the monastery. They go down into the town, and that was so obviously a set as well. But then again, this is just my thing. It's my foible. I don't like sets. And it's really hard when you can't physically go and film in a medieval village, because we don't have really any medieval villages existing anymore to be able to do that. So I am aware I'm being pernickety there. The interior sets, the internal rooms, I thought were done brilliantly. So I will say that I seem to have this problem. Me personally, I seem to not like external sets. So I think if you're going to film outside, find a location and film on location. If you're going to film inside, then a set is absolutely fine, because what you can do with a set is you can adjust the lighting so you can't see some of the kind of bits that would give it away. You can't see that a wooden texture is actually foam. You can't see that, I don't know, I can't think of any other examples, but the internal sets on this were beautifully done. They used real candles. They used candles for lighting, and they will have used other electric lighting obviously as well, but it wasn't obvious. And I really like to see that. I like to see the fact that, you know, they would have had candles everywhere at this time, and they looked, on the surface, again, this could be set dressing, on the surface they looked like they were beeswax candles, which they would have been as well. Chef's kiss, beautiful moment. I am going to come on to talk about the storyline and the book and everything and the characters and the actors in a minute, but these are just some of the things that I definitely picked up on while I was watching it. And there were moments again where there was really fantastic choices made, and then others where it just wasn't. So for one example, Barack comes to Shardlake's house and Barack comes to Chancery Lane and they have a meal. And the first thing that happens is that there is a runner on the table with a flower decoration or some kind of decoration in the middle of the table. Now, that's how a table would have been set when it was not being used for dining. And then it would have then been reset as a table ready for dining. There would have been place settings put out. And for some reason, either they didn't do their historical research or they just decided not to bother. They had Matthew and Barack being fed dinner on the table runner. It was just like a green table runner, and it was like he was kind of like half fed on the runner, half fed on the table, and I was just like, that would not happen like that, and it just completely broke it. I was just like, oh, a gentleman would never have his table set like that to eat. So that annoyed me. But then, you know, Joan, the housekeeper, puts this food down in front of Barack and it's steaming. It's actually hot food, which again, brilliant. You know, you never see tendrils of steam coming off the stews, and we did in this. And that was one of those, it was one of those moments where I had to stop it and pause it and watch it again. And I know it sounds pathetic, oh, you were getting like really excited over a steaming bowl of broth, but it just adds to the moment, it adds to the realism, and I thought it was a beautiful moment. So, and I really don't want to come across as being pernickety when I'm picking out very small things, because it's not like I really enjoyed it and I'm trying to bring it down by picking out these very small petty things. I am very much in the middle here, and I think that there are things that I loved about it, like I said, and things that I didn't. And so I'm kind of trying to pick out both. I'm trying to show you the bits that I really loved and show you the bits that I just thought they could have done a bit better with. Another thing like that is costume. Now, one of the things that they have quite obviously spent a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to showcase is the shirts and the embroidery. So many of the actors have got the high embroidered, ruffled collared shirts on that have blue embroidery, and that is such a decision of the costume department because they've had these shirts made, they've had them hand embroidered, and they are beautiful. The embroidery on them is absolutely gorgeous, and it very much kind of shows it's a sign of wealth. You know, you can't get an embroidered shirt if you are poor, so it's a very visible sign that we are supposed to know that these are important, these are wealthy people. And then they go on to put Matthew in this jerkin, which he wears for most of the show. I was very, very happy to see him in proper black lawyer's robes at the very beginning of the show. But that's literally for like the first 10-15 minutes of the first episode. And then after that, he's in this kind of blue jacket with a brown, slightly diarrhea coloured jerkin over the top with these like metal stud buttons. That whole ensemble was just, I don't know why. I don't know why they did that. They should have just kept him in his lawyer's robes, because the thing with Matthew is that he is a lawyer. He's known as a lawyer. He's very visible. That's where he gets his status from. If he's just wearing a jacket and a jerkin, he's any other man. The whole point of him wearing his lawyer's robes, especially his kind of long robe, for want of another word, I know I'm saying robe a lot, but the reason why he wears that is because it comes with status. In fact, I'm pretty sure that at some point in this book, is it him and Guy or him and someone else are talking about the fact that he looks like a monk because he's wearing all black, he's dressed in black robes. Maybe that is why they had him dressed up in something that isn't a lawyer's garb, because maybe they were worried that by looking too much like a lawyer, he would then also look like a monk and there wouldn't be enough visual kind of disparity between the two. But there's other ways that he could have done that. He could have just worn black, just wear a black jerkin, or wear a very, very dark colour jacket with a jerkin over the top. Oh, it's those. I'm using this motion a lot because I feel like that is what I'm getting. The good and the bad together. There are so many examples of this throughout the entire series where it's like, that was genius, brilliant, thank you, I appreciate you doing that. And on the other hand, who did you get to do that bit? Because they didn't do that bit very well. For all of the things that I didn't like about this show, one thing that I thought was brilliant was the acting. I thought the acting was superb. Now, other people might disagree with me. Again, that's just your opinion. This is my opinion. I thought the actors were great, and actually all of the actors acted in a way that kind of was like what I imagined in the book. They're never going to be able to get it 100%. They're never going to get it absolutely perfect because they can't see into my mind. And also, my mind is just my interpretation of the books. Everybody has different interpretations. I thought the acting and the characterisation of each individual character within this book was great. The casting, I had absolutely no problem with any of the casting. I thought they were all great at the individual roles that they did. Yeah, so I thought that all of the cast were absolutely brilliant. I thought Arthur Hughes as Shardlake was great. I mean, he may not have visibly looked like the Shardlake in my initial mind. I think in my mind, I think I have someone who is a little bit more like Matthew McFadden mixed with a little bit of what's the name? Mark Rylance. So like if you had a younger Mark Rylance with a little bit more of Matthew McFadden's kind of handsomeness, that's the kind of Shardlake I had in my mind. Now I know a lot of people really wanted Mark Rylance for Shardlake, but he's just too old. I mean, Shardlake is supposed to be in his mid-30s and Mark Rylance is quite a bit older than that. I think he's either in his 50s or his 60s now, so it was never going to work, but that's who I pictured in my mind. Now, having said that, I didn't mind then when Arthur Hughes was cast, because at the end of the day, it's always going to be a choice, and I would rather have somebody who is better at acting a character than looking like a character and having a completely different personality and a completely different interpretation of that character. And I thought he did such a beautiful job of being Shardlake that I personally didn't mind that he didn't look necessarily that much like Shardlake. Now, having said that, Arthur Hughes does have a disability. He has radial dysplasia in his arm, and so he has a very visible disability. Now, it would have been so easy, I've said this before, it would have been so easy for them to either gloss over Matthew's disability and pretend that it wasn't there, or to cast a non-disabled actor in the role of Shardlake. But I think it was such a great opportunity for them to give an opportunity to somebody who has a disability to be able to act in that role. And we need to see more of this generally. We need to see more representation for disabled actors anyway. Sorry, Tom has now decided he wants to strim the garden. So I apologise if you can hear strimming in the background. No matter what happens, no matter when I film, Tom seems to love to make noise in the background. I thought Anthony Boyle, who played Jack Barak, was great as well. He kind of was a little bit more like what I envisaged actually of Jack Barak. The only bit that I wasn't sure of was the killing of Goodhap, the doctor. Now, what I wanted to do was watch the show on Wednesday, and then from Wednesday to now I wanted to reread Dissolution, because I've said before that I kind of get a little bit of book amnesia. I forget what happens in books. I've read this so many times that, like I said, the book is falling apart. But I can't remember all of the details of the book, and that's a beautiful thing for me, because I get to reread books over and over again, and it's like reading them afresh every time. I can't remember what happens to Dr. Goodhap in... Is it Dr. Goodhap or just Goodhap? In the book. But I didn't think that Barak killed him. Well, I didn't think that Mark killed him. So I wasn't really sure about that. I wasn't really sure why that had to be in, why they did that, whether it was just for a bit of extra gore. I'm not going to mention that too much because, like I say, I can't remember whether it was in the book or not. Feel free to correct me in the comments or explain it in the comments to me, and then I'll understand more. But I didn't really like that, because it kind of, I don't know, it made Barak out to be quite capable of murder or killing, and I never kind of really got that from Barak's character. I think he's got a lot of bravado, he's got a lot of, he can defend himself, but I don't think he's ever been cold or calculated, and they kind of made him a bit cold and calculated in this. So that was the only thing about his character that I didn't really like. I thought Ruby Ashbourne-Serkis as Alice was perfect casting. She was fantastic. She managed to get the kind of, the slightly independent spirited, the not easily intimidated by Shardlake character. Alice was such a incredibly complex character in the books that I was really hoping we weren't going to get this simpering woman in the show, and we didn't. I thought she was absolutely brilliant casting. The only thing that I'm a little bit sad of, actually, is that Ruby Ashbourne-Serkis isn't going to be able to be in future seasons, because that's her role with the series done. I think she could have made quite a cool Tamsin, but I'll be really interested to see who they cast in the role of Tamsin, and I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to spoil the future, but I thought that she was brilliant, and I loved Ruby's costumes. So Alice's kind of outfits, the skirts, the shirts with the like what they call the corsets over the top, beautiful, and it's made me want one. It's made me want at least one of Ruby's or Alice's costumes from the show. I thought that was really, really beautiful. Nothing more to add about her, actually. I thought that her character, her scenes were brilliant. I thought she was really great in all of the different bits, from being quite cold and aloof to being in love with Jack later on. I thought they were all kind of handled really well. Yeah, she's a brilliant actor, and I'd love to see her in more, actually. So I know that casting Babu Cisse in the role of Abbot Fabian is something that has caused a lot of issues for the people who don't like to see diverse representation in historical shows. I do not have a problem with it at all. I never have. I don't have a problem with people of colour being cast in historic shows. Okay, no, there would not have been a black abbot. Although, have we had a black abbot at some point? Because this is the thing, people say, oh no, historically you wouldn't have had black people in England at this time. Did you know that actually up in Northumberland there was a black Roman general who led a whole army of Romans in the Roman times, there was a black general. So it's absolute bullshit that people say, and I'm sorry I'm swearing now, but I feel really passionately about this. It's absolute rubbish that people think that black people and people of colour have only existed in the UK since the abolition of slavery. It's just not true. So although in this actual book, and as far as I am aware in history, there is no black abbot that has been part of the Catholic Church in the 1530s, there's absolutely no reason why they couldn't decide that for this fictional novel, they could cast a black abbot. Because we've had a black Roman general, we've had black people in lots of different positions of power throughout history, and in lots of different examples of people living in England. And so I don't have a problem with it. So I think that actually, rather than commenting on the colour of Babu Cissé's skin, I would prefer to talk about his acting, because I thought his character as Abbot Fabian, I thought he was perfect for the role. He was so good at showing that kind of real reluctance to hand over the monasteries to the commission and to the crown. This was something that they obviously didn't really have time to discuss as part of the show, because again, it's only a 4-part show, but they did really well at showing how conflicted his character was, and how reluctant he was, and what lengths he was kind of willing to go to save the monastery. And there's some really beautiful shots. I think there's a shot of him where he's on a balcony and he's just staring out, and that was another one of those shots where I had to pause it and watch it again, because I was like, that is such a beautiful moment. And there's a moment where he's got, I think it's a gold stamp or something, he's turning it over in his hands. To be honest, I would have liked to have seen more of his character, because I think in the book he has dinner with Matthew and Barak, and they talk a lot more about the church and about the monastery and about the dissolution, and they talk about faith more. And I think that would have been a really beautiful kind of way to talk a little bit more about the underlying Reformation, which was kind of part of the show because it's part of the storyline, but it wasn't really explored that much. Oh, now he's drilling. Great, now he's drilling. I am sorry. It would have been great to show the position of this monastery within the local economy. So yeah, whilst I loved Babu Cissé's Abbot Fabian, I would really have loved to have seen more of him. I thought his character was great, but I would have liked to have seen more of him in the show. So Irfan Shamji was the actor who played Brother Guy, and I thought he was fantastic again. I thought he was really great at showing a real compassionate side, a real compassionate character, because there's a lot of people, the character who plays Prior Mortimus, sorry, I am looking down so I can get everybody's names correctly, because quite a lot of names to remember. Yeah, it's Brian Vernal who plays Prior Mortimus, there's Brother Edwig. They're all very kind of like harsh characters and quite cold. And I think Brother Guy and Irfan Shamji's interpretation of Brother Guy is so good, because it brings that softness to the monks and to the monastery that, you know, that there would have been. The only thing that I really missed from the show with Brother Guy was Brother Guy and Matthew's kind of relationship that develops. They become friends as a result of Matthew being at Scansey, at the monastery. And I thought some of those, they have quite a lot of theological discussions about Brother Guy's faith, about how he was trained in medicine, because Brother Guy is very much, it's quite a modern kind of medical person, really, in the way that he thinks. He is the physician, I think they called them at the time. He's the physician for the abbey, and he runs the abbey infirmary, and he is discussing a lot of the murders. He performs a post-mortem on one of the characters who dies, which at that time would not have been something that was done. It's one of those things, he's very much kind of, he's got quite a modern philosophy on medicine and on physiology, and Matthew talks to him about that. Now, maybe again in another season, if we've got more episodes per season, we'll be able to see that relationship develop more. So yeah, I'm hoping that we get to see more of his character. I'm just gonna go through a couple of almost like honourable mentions, really. I thought that Joe Barber as Simon Wellplay, the novice monk who ends up dying, I thought he was brilliant, really great character, very expressive face. I thought that Miles Barrow as Brother Gabriel, again, really great. I thought his character was fabulous. Paul Kay as Brother Jerome was brilliant. And I know that they put these bigger faces in to kind of try and attract people to watch it. It's the same with why they put Sean Bean in as Thomas Cromwell. He's only in for a couple of scenes, but they put it in because it's a big name, it attracts people to watch it. But I thought they were both great. I thought that Sean Bean as Thomas Cromwell, and he did the slightly manic side of Thomas Cromwell really well as well. David Pearce as Brother Edwig was great. I've mentioned Brian Vernal. Matthew Steer as Dr. Goodhat was great. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I could go down the whole list, but I haven't got time for that. But I thought that the acting was brilliant. I thought that everyone's acting was great. I thought that on the whole, every character embodied, either in their looks or in their acting and in their storyline, reflected what I saw in my mind or what I thought of when I read the book. Like I say, it's really hard when casting people in an adaptation because they're never going to get it 100% how you picture it in your mind. But on the whole, I couldn't really fault any of that in terms of the casting, and I'm excited to meet new characters as we go into more seasons. Oh, and another thing was that, sorry, I know I'm being petty now, but these are like little things that, for me, when you get enough of these little things that add up, they just kind of bring the whole show down a little bit. One of the things that annoyed me was when they were riding through the fields, either to the abbey or, sorry, the monastery, or into the town, was that they were riding through fields. And I was like, where is the road? Where's the path? It's the medieval times, not the Dark Ages. Like, there were roads. There were, at this point, you had a lot of Roman roads that were still existing that were used as major highways because that's how people travelled. You had carriages and carts and wagons that would transport goods all across the country. They weren't going through fields. They were going on roads. And so it just slightly irritated me because, yes, on the one hand, they can't go on a tarmacked road because obviously roads were not tarmacked then, but you can find a stretch of road somewhere in England or in the UK or in Europe, a track that looks like you could put a wagon down it and a horse could walk down it, but it's not a modern paved road. But sorry, I know I'm picking things out now, but maybe you find that interesting as much as I do, like little things like this, because like I say, overall, had all of these things been historically appropriate, I'd have been going, oh my God, it was incredible. There was just these tiny things. But like I say, the things that were done so brilliantly were kind of not cancelled out, but they were balanced out by the things that just didn't work so well. Another thing, so going on to another thing that I thought was really good, was the fact that the actors were actually riding. And we see this so much, and I know that it's really hard, you know, if you're an actor who doesn't ride a horse, are you going to learn to ride a horse just for one show that you're in or one movie? Probably not. You may not have the time, and the health and safety might mean that you don't. You just get an experienced rider and shoot them from the back. But in this, they actually had the actors riding, and I thought that was really great. And the horses had panniers. Panniers are the bags that would be strapped over a horse that would have had all of your belongings in it, all of your personal things that you were taking with you, your clothes, your boots, your spare robes, things like that. Now, you wouldn't have had a lot, and that's why panniers were always quite small. So it was really great to actually see panniers on the horses because it showed how people in the medieval times carried their belongings with them. So again, brilliant. You're putting panniers on a horse, but then you're riding them through a field. I feel like a broken record at this point. I should probably stop soon. So there were a couple of other things, but I feel like I've whinged on for quite a long time now. So I think that's it, really. I think that's probably all I'm going to say about it for now. Let me know what you think. Have you watched it? Thank you very much for watching the video. If you've watched it this far, put a drop of blood. Ooh, I think there's a drop of blood emoji. Put a drop of blood in the comments section if you have watched the video this far. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 1,000 followers. 1,000 subscribers, sorry. And yeah, if you want to support the work that I do, I have a Patreon account, and thank you very much to my patrons already who are currently scrolling on screen. Thank you very much for supporting me, and if you want to become a patron, the link is in the description. And follow me on all my social media. I am Charlotte Furness Writer everywhere except for TikTok, where I am Charlotte Furness Author, because somebody else stole Charlotte Furness Writer before I could get to it. So yes, do follow me, do subscribe, and I will be back shortly with another video with a Bridgerton reaction, because Bridgerton, the show, comes out on the 16th, so I'll be watching all of that as well. I'm not going to get a reaction out for that as fast as I have for this one though, because A, there's more episodes of Bridgerton to get through, and B, there are a lot of other Bridgerton experts out there who will be getting their reactions up faster. But you will get a reaction on the both halves, because it's being released in 2 halves, so... Thank you very much. I'm sorry about the audio. I can't control what my husband does. Wish I could. And I will be back in another video. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon. Bye.